Thank you. Thank you. My fellow Americans, it is an honor. It is an honor to be with you tonight because we're laying the groundwork for Kamala Harris to become our next president. And let me tell you why that is so important. I want you all to remember where we were 3.5 years ago. We were in the midst of the worst public health crisis in 100 years and the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. 3,000 Americans were dying every day, and our hospitals were overwhelmed with COVID patients. All across the country, businesses were shutting down. Unemployment was soaring. Workers were losing their health insurance. Schools were closing. State and city budgets were running out of money. People were being evicted from their homes. Children in America were going hungry. That was the reality the Biden-Harris administration faced as they entered the Oval Office. A nation suffering, a nation frightened, and people looking to their government for support. And within 2 months of taking office, our government did respond. We passed the American Rescue Plan, which provided $1,400 for every man, woman, and child in the working class. We extended and expanded benefits for the unemployed. We provided emergency assistance for small businesses to stay open.
Could you guys imagine?
We guarantee.
Just imagine a world where he had been president in 2016 and where we'd be now. I mean, Harris-Walz would have, I mean, Bernie Sanders laying the groundwork with his campaign for a Harris-Walz style campaign was incredibly important and is what facilitated this kind of, it's not social spending increases, it's just more of a populist focus instead of the establishment Dems way that they would, like the Hillary Clintons of the world. We saw the distinction yesterday between how she speaks and how people feel when she speaks versus how Kamala Harris or Tim Walz or Bernie Sanders speak and make you feel. Now, of course, all the delegates in the room cheer for her all the time, but and she did win the popular vote, but people did not like Hillary Clinton. Many people didn't like Hillary Clinton. Whereas the only reason people don't like Bernie Sanders is because they're rich and afraid of him, and all they have against Kamala Harris is just misogyny and racism.
Guaranteed health care coverage to tens of millions of Americans through one of the largest expansions of Medicaid in history.
This is the kind of rhetoric that works.
We provided rent relief and mortgage assistance, which prevented tenants and homeowners from being evicted.
Yeah.
We established emergency food programs for hungry children and the elderly, and protected the pensions of millions of union workers and retirees from being slashed by up to.
This is what we did for you. What did Donald Trump do for you? He told you to take an antifungal medication that's used in fish tanks. And that's it. Oh, and inject bleach or something.
65%. Oh, and by the way, we cut childhood poverty by over 40% through an expanded child tax credit.
40.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, Vice President Harris. Thank you, Democratic Congress. Now, I say all of this not to relive that difficult moment, but to make one simple point. When the political will is there, government can effectively deliver for the people of our country.
If we fight, we win, guys.
And now we need to summon that will again, because too many of our fellow...
Remember in Bernie Sanders' campaign when he raised like an enormous amount of money that rivaled that of Hillary Clinton's war chest, just through was it $23, $24, $26? It was like $20 donations from just everyday Americans, no corporate PAC money. Remember that kind of energy? The people that were on the streets, like knocking on doors, canvassing for Bernie Sanders. We need that energy with Kamala Harris, and it seems like sometimes we might get it, depending on if they fuck it up or not.
Americans are struggling every day to just get by, to put food on the table, to pay the rent, and to get the health care they need. Brothers and sisters, bottom line, we need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class. My fellow Americans, when 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck, the top 1% have never, ever had it so good. And these oligarchs tell us...
Just a reminder that the amount of wealth inequality that exists between the rich and really just the 1% and the 99% of the rest of the United States is a greater disparity between the rich and the poor during the French Revolution, when, they got beheaded and people ate the rich. The wealth disparity is now greater than that. That's why you hear the joke, eat the rich. It's not a joke, it's a callback. Just to be clear, I don't advocate for cannibalism.
Shouldn't tax the rich. The oligarchs...
Mostly. Sometimes I feel like you could have a little bit of cannibalism.
Tell us we shouldn't take on price gouging. We shouldn't expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision. And we shouldn't increase Social Security benefits for struggling seniors. Well, I've got some bad news for them.
Exactly what we're going to do.
That is precisely what we are going to do.
Based, Mary the Monster.
And we're going to win this struggle because this is precisely what the American people want from their government.
Even the Republicans want this. Even the crazy MAGA cultists, this is actually what they want. They just don't think that we're the ones doing it. They think Trump is the one doing it. But this is exactly what they want. And they'll yell about, oh, it's going to increase inflation and all of this because they don't actually know how anything works. They just parrot things that they hear from conservative commentators and grifters online and Donald Trump himself, and they think that that's the truth. But this is actually what they want. Almost every American in the country that is part of the 99% wants these policies. They might not know that they do, but they benefit from it. And a lot of them think that Donald Trump is doing exactly this, just in different ways, but he's doing the opposite. And the disparity between the perception of reality between the right and the left is directly influenced by conservative grifters, commentators, people who are doing what I'm doing right now, but lying to you. It's just that simple.
And my friends, at the very top of that to-do list is the need to get big money out of our political process. Billionaires in both parties should not be able to buy elections, including primary elections.
Remember that AIPAC. Oh my God. Okay, fine. I can't make that bigger right now. Remember that AIPAC spent about $14.5 million to kick Jamal Bowman out of his seat in New York? and then also spent several more $1 million trying to kick out Ilhan Omar and failed, thankfully. Was it Ilhan Omar? It was one of the squad. It was another one of the squad. They spent an incredible amount of money on political campaigns just to kick Democrats out of office. They're buying seats. And might I add, when you look at the actual votes that they get after, like these elections where, like Jamal Bowman's, for example, if you take a look at the actual vote count, Jamal Bowman got the same, just about the same amount of votes as he had in his previous election. Just a little bit less. Whereas the opponent that won also got just about as much as his predecessor had in the previous election. All of these, like all the millions of dollars that AIPAC spends, doesn't go towards bringing out other people to vote. Remember, the narrative there was that the Jews of the community banded together and removed the anti-Semite from office. However, that's not what happened. What happened was less people came out to vote for Jamal Bowman, and that is the only way that whatever his name is, the opponent won. They're not spending this money to get out the vote. They're spending this money to restrict the vote. Because again, when more people vote, Democrats win. The less people vote, Republicans win, which is why they try and stop you from voting, and they try and make it as difficult as possible, such as voter ID laws, trying to ban voting like through the mail, and all of this. It's on purpose.
For the sake of our democracy, we must overturn the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision.
Yes, I was talking about this yesterday. Money
And
in
move
politics
toward
is the greatest problem of our time.
public funding of elections. And let me tell you what else the disaster is. And we're going to win this struggle because this is precisely what the American people want from their government. And my friends, at the very top of that to-do list is the need to get big money out of our political process. Billionaires in both parties should not be able to buy elections, including primary elections. For the sake of our democracy, we must overturn the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision and move toward public funding of elections. And let me tell you what else we must do. We need to join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a human right, not a privilege. We need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. We need to pass the PRO Act so that workers can organize in unions and gain the decent pay and benefits they deserve. We need to strengthen public education, raise teachers' salaries,
Yes, please.
and make sure that every American, regardless of income, receives the higher education he or she needs. We need to take on Big Pharma and cut our prescription drug costs in half so that we no longer pay any more than other countries. Joe and Kamala made sure that no senior in America pays over $35 a month for insulin. We need to make sure that reality is true for every American.
I agree. Again,
I look forward to working with Kamala and Tim to pass this agenda. And let us be very clear. This is not a radical agenda.
They'll call it that.
But let me tell you what a radical agenda is. And that is Trump's project 2025. At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, giving more tax breaks to billionaires is radical.
Yeah.
Putting forth budgets to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid is radical.
Yep.
Letting polluters destroy our planet is radical. And my friends, we won't let that happen.
He will destroy everything this time. Everything.
Fellow Americans, in the last 3.5 years, working together, we have accomplished more than any government since FDR.
This is true.
But much, much more remains to be done. We must summon the courage to stand up to wealth and power and deliver justice for people at home and abroad. Abroad, we must end this horrific war in Gaza.
The second time ever during this whole thing that I've heard Gaza even mentioned. The first one was AOC. And people are pretty mad at her about that because she said that Kamala Harris is ceaselessly trying to have a ceasefire and there's no evidence for it. Bernie Sanders is the second person to make this comment.
Bring home the hostages and demand an immediate ceasefire. At home right here, we must take on Big Pharma, Big Oil, Big Ag, Big Tech, and all the other corporate monopolists whose greed is denying progress for working people.
All of them. It's all corporations. That's their only job.
On November 5th, let us elect Kamala Harris as our president, and let us go forward to create the nation we know we can become. Thank you all very much.